Hi, guys. How are you today? Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to get ready to read Chapter 3 of our book, Monster Street. Chapter 3 is called Follow the Rules. So if we remember from Chapter 2, he knocked on a door of a house of people he did not know, and a shadow was looming in the dark. "No!" Max shouted, cowering beneath his backpack. Trembling, he waited for the pain of being cut in half. He had always wondered what murder victims' final moments felt like, and now he was about to find out. But the pain never came. "Max, what are you doing?" he heard his mother's voice call out. Max opened his eyes and saw the axe hanging at the tall stranger's side. The old man wore faded overalls and muddy work boots. The crow's feet in the squints of his eyes told the story of his years, and the smoke from his corncob pipe matched the color of what little hair he had left. "This is your Gramps," Max's mom said. Max stood on the porch steps, feeling foolish for mistaking his own grandfather for an axe murderer. "Let me get a good look at you, boy," Gramps said warmly, setting down the axe and holding Max's shoulder square to him. "Just as I thought. You're the spitting image of your father when he was your age, especially in that red hoodie. He used to wear that thing all the time." Gramps hugged him, and Max felt the cold metal buttons of the old man's overalls against his cheek. "And this," Max's mom continued, "is your Grammy." Max watched as an old woman walked up beside his mother, dragging a slaughtered hog by its hoof. She wore a blood-stained apron over a denim dress, and her silver hair was tied up in a bun. "We've dreamed about this day for so long," Grammy said, and she leaned down to kiss Max's cheek. "It will be good to have some young blood around here to help with the chores." "Chores?" Max asked his mom, shouting a disapproving look. "I mean, thank you for having me." Grammy heaved the dead hog onto a butcher's slab near the porch and then turned to Max's mom. "Won't you stay for dinner, dear? It's been so long since we've had a good chat." Max's mom hesitated and glanced out at the surrounding woods. She seemed anxious about something. "Thanks, but I'd like to get back to the city before nightfall," she said. She knelt down in front of Max. "I'll pick you up in a few days, and don't forget to listen to your Gramps and Grammy, okay?" She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. Then she whispered something to Grammy that Max had the feeling he wasn't supposed to hear. "Please keep him safe." Grammy gazed back at her solemnly. Then Max watched his mom climb back into the minivan and disappear down the winding dirt road, desperately wishing he could go with her. "Well," said Gramps, patting Max's back, "how's about we show you to your room?" Max nodded, and the three of them walked inside the cabin. He was surprised to find that it was more spacious than it looked from the outside. The ceilings were high, and everything in the house had an old-fashioned appearance, as if it had been teleported from another time. There were antique lamps and rocking chairs, moth-eaten couches, and cast-iron pots and pans. And the hallways were lined with shelves full of glass jars, each marked with a piece of masking tape labeled with strange herbal names. But the most unusual thing of all was that every wall in the cabin was covered with taxidermied animal heads. Everywhere Max looked, there were stuffed mountain deer, bobcats, turkeys, mountain lions, and buffaloes staring back at him. From the look of it, his father's family were serious hunters. "Your father used to be the best hunter in Wolf County, you know," Grandpa said. "I thought he was a scientist," Max replied. "Being a scientist is what made him a good hunter. He could read the signs of nature better than any of us, and he was always coming up with new contraptions and experiments. Max continued examining the animal heads. If it's called Wolf County, then why are there any wolves on your walls? The old man spoke with regret in his voice. There used to be quite a few wolves in these parts, but they haven't been around in years. Gramps and Grammy turned the corner and led Max up a creaking staircase. Each step groaned beneath their feet, like creatures waking from an ancient sleep. When they arrived at the top of the stairs, Grammy opened the first door in the hallway. This was your father's room, she said. You and your parents stayed here when you were a baby. It's not much, but it's cozy. Why don't you get settled, then take a look around the farm before supper? Max glanced around the wood-planked walls. A strange map or calendar hung on the wall next to the bed, displaying the phases of the moon. And beside the nightstand was an antique telescope looming over a stack of astronomy magazines. This is a long one. It was aimed out the window to a dozen rows of pumpkins speckling out into the distance toward the neighbor's two-story house, which sat on a hill. And there at the nightstand was a shiny silver dagger. Max couldn't take his eyes off of it. It was your father's knife, Gramps said. We keep it there in remembrance. He rarely went anywhere without it. Max walked over and looked down at it, thinking of all the times his father's hands held that same knife. Is there a place where I can charge my phone or iPad? Max asked, looking around for an electrical outlet. I'm afraid there ain't a lick of electricity in this house, Gramps replied. But how do you do anything without electricity? Max asked, just now realizing that he hadn't seen a single light bulb in the house, only lanterns and candles. We prefer a simpler life than most, Gramps continued. Self-reliance is the key to our survival. At Gramps' words, Granny cleared her throat. And you'll survive this just fine, too, as long as you follow the rules, she said, and she sounded far more serious than she had only a moment before. Oh, what rules? Max asked. If there was anything he despised more than the absence of electricity, it was rules. He had never been good at following them at school, at home, or even at the arcade. Really? There's just one, Granny corrected him. Your father always had a hard time with it, and well? Gramps and Granny exchanged a knowing look. Then Gramps leaned forward. Listen closely, boy. No matter what you do while you are here, don't cross the barbed wire fence into the eastern forest. Why? What's in the forest? Max asked. Gramps' voice grew deeper and more grave. Monsters, he whispered. Max started to laugh, but then he saw that Gramps' eyes were dead serious. He gulped. Monsters? Max said with a shaky voice. He loved monsters in the movies and in the games, but the prospect of real monsters, well, that was something else. Oh, Gramps, you don't have to be so dramatic, Grammy said, swatting the old man's arm. The boy just got here. No need to overwhelm him with such talk. But Max could tell there was some truth to what Gramps was saying. Gramps grunted, perturbed that Granny had interrupted him. He looked at Max and continued, You'll be safe, as long as you don't go into that forest. And be sure you wear that hoodie zipped up wherever you go. It'll protect you, especially during the next 3 nights. Oh, and it's very important that you don't trust anyone while you're here, not even the neighbors. How come? What happens during the next 3 nights? Max asked. Gramps put his hand on Max's shoulder. The full moon, he warned. Gramps' eyes, those big hollowed eyes, seemed plagued with fear. Max, from the look on Granny's face, Max sensed that his family was petrified of the full moon, and the only question was why. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4 tomorrow. Have a good day, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.